The sirens cut through the quiet Washington night, flashing lights illuminating the front of the Capitol Jewish Museum, a place meant to celebrate history, learning, and connection. Now, it's the scene of a tragedy that has left the Jewish community shaken and the entire country asking, how safe are American Jews today, and why are these attacks escalating? 2 Israeli embassy employees just doing their jobs were gunned down on the museum steps. Hours later, the suspect, Elias Rodriguez, told police, "I did it for Palestine. I did it for Gaza." The news ricocheted across social media, headlines, and shocked family phone calls. Again? People whispered. How could this happen here? But beneath the immediate horror is a question that goes beyond one city, one shooting, or one community. Is this the new reality for Jews in America? And if so, what does it say about where the U.S. is heading? This is not just a story about one hate crime. It's about centuries of history, political divides that grow deeper every year, and a digital world where hate has become weaponized. It's about a community faced with an impossible choice: hide in fear or stand more visibly than ever before. So, what is really driving the surge in anti-Semitic attacks? Why now? And crucially, what can or should be done? To answer those questions, let's take a crash course through history, looking at how anti-Semitism has evolved and returned with terrifying force. Rewind to the early 20th century in the United States. Jews, many fleeing persecution in Europe, arrived on American shores hopeful for a better life. But even here they faced quotas at universities, discrimination in hiring, and violent hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan targeting their neighborhoods. In Europe, anti-Semitism wasn't just social. It was codified by law, enforced by governments, and ultimately led to the Holocaust, the most horrifying episode in Jewish history, where 6 million were murdered just because of who they were. After World War II, it seemed like the world had finally learned its lesson. For decades, anti-Semitism in the U.S. appeared to wane. Jews rose in American society, becoming leaders in business, science, and politics. Neighborhoods grew more diverse. Open anti-Semitism was largely banished from polite conversation. But even then, there were cracks beneath the surface: whispered slurs, vandalized synagogues, and the occasional hate-fueled attack. Fast forward to today. The last decade has shattered the illusion that anti-Semitism was a disease of the past. The numbers are staggering. According to the Anti-Defamation League, incidents of anti-Semitic harassment, vandalism, and assault in the U.S. have skyrocketed, hitting historic highs in 2024 and showing no sign of slowing down in 2025. Jewish day schools have seen a 150% spike in targeted incidents in just the first quarter of this year. It's easy to see these events as isolated, another shooting, another headline, but the trend line is clear. Something fundamental has shifted in America. So, what's driving this new wave? The answers, like the violence itself, are complicated. The internet, with its promise of connection, has also become a breeding ground for hate. Conspiracy theories, extreme ideologies, and targeted harassment now travel at the speed of light. Political polarization is at a level not seen in generations, splitting everything, including the definition of anti-Semitism itself. According to Dr. Tal Becker, an Israeli foreign policy expert, the rise in anti-Semitism is linked to a broader trend of rising extremism and intolerance globally. In some corners, criticism of Israel is viewed as anti-Semitic. In others, it is fiercely defended as political dissent. That blurry line has become the flashpoint for countless debates on college campuses and city streets. And for the Jewish community, it's a trap, forced to defend itself from all sides, while its institutions become targets for attack. The Capitol Jewish Museum, ground zero for this most recent tragedy, was supposed to be a place of learning, a sign of hope. Its mission? To connect communities through education and dialogue. Now it's investing in advanced metal detectors, bag checks, and round-the-clock police patrols. This shift, symbolizing a fortress mentality, captures the painful irony. Places built to unite people now struggle most to remain open and welcoming. The American Jewish Committee, which organized the ill-fated event, has long worked to build bridges between communities. But now they're lobbying for emergency security funding, calling for a special congressional hearing, and facing what one rabbi describes as an exhausting time, not just for us as spiritual leaders, but for everyone in our communities. For Rabbi Aaron Potek of Washington, D.C., the emotional toll is visible. There's fear, yes, but I've seen a refusal to be defined by that fear. Jews have this instinct to show up in times of crisis, but it's been exhausting. Some experts call what's happening a perfect storm. Oren Siegel of the ADL warns, "The current climate of political polarization and online extremism is creating a perfect storm for anti-Semitism to thrive." Security organizations like the Secure Community Network report a 200% jump in consultations with Jewish schools, synagogues, and community centers since the shooting. Across America, Jewish spaces are locked down, children's backpacks searched, and congregants eyeing every stranger who walks through the door. But the threat is not just physical. Online, Jewish leaders, students, and everyday citizens are bombarded with hate messages, threats, and conspiracy theories. According to Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL, we need a whole-of-society approach to combat anti-Semitism, including education, law enforcement, and community engagement. Ironically, the suspect in this most recent shooting, Elias Rodriguez, presents a particularly troubling case. Court documents reveal a mix of far-left and far-right ideological influences, and he was reportedly a supporter of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel. His manifesto, discovered by law enforcement, is a muddled blend. References to Tikkun Olam, a Jewish call to repair the world, mixed with support for Palestinian nationalism and extremist rhetoric from across the political spectrum. This raises a critical and uncomfortable question. Is anti-Semitism today coming from the political right, from the left, or is it something more insidious, resurfacing in new forms, wearing different disguises? Some, like Rabbi Potek, challenge the idea that government crackdowns on pro-Palestinian protests are the answer. That is very clear weaponizing of anti-Semitism to promote a particular and hateful agenda. It does not speak for me. Using the very real threat of anti-Semitism to promote a very particular agenda helps no one, not even Jews. Meanwhile, white nationalist groups continue to grow bolder. Project Esther, a government effort nominally aimed at fighting anti-Semitism, is criticized for failing to mention right-wing hate groups at all. For many in the Jewish community, this selective outrage is more than disappointing. It feels like a dangerous game, one where their safety is treated as a political pawn. Out on the streets, Jewish Americans are forced into impossible decisions, between proudly displaying their identity and protecting themselves and their families. Rabbi Shira Stutman, in the wake of the shooting, asserted, "This tragedy reminds us that we must not be afraid to live openly and proudly as Jews, but we must also be vigilant and proactive in protecting our community." But vigilance comes at a high price. Synagogues now resemble fortresses. Community centers are run more like secure compounds. Across the Atlantic, nations like France and Germany have poured millions into Jewish security, reacting to the same global trend. In Washington, D.C., city leaders now debate redefining hate crimes to account for the complex motives behind modern attacks, reflecting, if nothing else, the profound uncertainty everyone feels. The story of the two victims cannot be separated from this larger struggle. Sarah Milgram dedicated her life to interfaith dialogue, building bridges between Jews and Palestinians. Yaron Lashinsky was researching how social media could heal political polarization, not fuel it. Their deaths are more than losses. They are metaphors for the promise and peril of our interconnected age. And as the Jewish community copes with unimaginable pain, a sense of exhaustion has set in. It would be nice to just focus on helping people with their own struggles, says Rabbi Potek, instead of being forced to constantly reckon with global conflicts and hate. So where does this leave America's Jews and the nation itself? As institutions ramp up security, as lawmakers debate definitions and funding, and as communities struggle to understand motives that blur traditional ideological lines, the real question remains. Are we witnessing a temporary surge, or is this the beginning of a more dangerous era for Jewish life in America and for pluralism itself? And with every new incident, is the fortress mentality making communities safer, or is it slowly tearing at the fabric of open democratic society? As we'll see, the answers are neither simple nor comforting, and the next steps will challenge not just the Jewish community, but every American who believes in the promise of a country built on unity and difference. As we continue to process the shock of the fatal shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, a sense of urgency descends on the entire American Jewish community. The grief is palpable, visible in guarded conversations outside synagogues, whispered among parents deciding whether it's safe for their children to attend Hebrew school, and reflected in the somber expressions of leaders grappling with questions that refuse easy answers. In the wake of such tragedy, one chilling question lingers. Is this moment a harbinger of a darker future for Jews in America, or can it instead be a catalyst for resilience, change, and a renewed commitment to pluralism? Looking ahead, the possible scenarios branching out from today's crisis reveal both daunting risks and unexpected opportunities. On the immediate horizon, Jewish institutions across the United States are already considering, and in some cases rapidly implementing, sweeping security upgrades. Inside the walls of the Capitol Jewish Museum, where history and hope are meant to intersect, plans for reopening now involve advanced metal detectors, bag checks, and increased law enforcement presence. The Secure Community Network, a national Jewish security organization, reports a staggering 200% spike in consultation requests since the shooting. Across the country, synagogues, day schools, camps, and community centers are fortifying themselves in ways that, just a decade ago, would have seemed unthinkable. This transformation comes at a psychological cost. Rabbi Aaron Potek, reflecting both as a leader and as a member of the community, confesses, "It's scary to think that we'd be targeted for simply being in a Jewish space. There's this added burden of trying to make sense of the senseless, to reassure a community when the answers just aren't clear." Fear is present in the background, shaping daily routines and prompting families to reconsider public displays of their religion. Yet paradoxically, this fear has met with a stubborn kind of courage. Many Jews, Potek notes, are unapologetically displaying their Judaism, refusing to let hatred define their public identity. But what does the future truly hold? One potential path is the normalization of high-alert living, a reality where security screenings and armed guards become permanent fixtures at every Jewish gathering. Such a world would offer some protection, but at the cost of undermining the openness that has long characterized American Jewish life. The joy of spontaneous celebration, the comfort of open doors, the sense of trust in neighbors, all could become casualties of fear. Another possibility is the further entrenchment of political polarization. Already, the debate over anti-Israel sentiment and antisemitism is fracturing communities both within and beyond Jewish circles. The aftermath of the shooting has seen voices on both the left and right leveraging the tragedy to advance their own narratives. The accused shooter, Elias Rodriguez, left behind a manifesto that weaves together far-left and far-right ideas, revealing a web of contradictions, but also underlining how the internet has become a breeding ground for radicalization across the spectrum. As Oren Siegel of the ADL warns, the current climate of political polarization and online extremism is creating a perfect storm for anti-Semitism to thrive. Meanwhile, policy responses are catching up, sometimes clumsily, sometimes forcefully. In Washington, the City Council is debating a bill to expand the definition of hate crimes. Nationally, the Congressional Jewish Caucus has requested hearings to address the growing threat. Yet legislation alone cannot heal what is broken. If history is any guide, combating bigotry requires not just laws or funding for security, but a profound cultural shift, one that values solidarity over suspicion and pluralism over divisiveness. There is also hope in increased community outreach and education. Experts like Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL emphasize the need for a whole-of-society approach, bringing together schools, police, religious leaders, and everyday citizens. In Europe, countries like France and Germany are ramping up funding to secure Jewish institutions, but also investing in Holocaust education and interfaith dialogue. Sarah Milgram, the victim who devoted her life to interfaith work, left behind a legacy that challenges us all, to bridge divides before they harden beyond repair. Technological innovation may play a part as well. Jewish community centers are looking at everything from facial recognition software to real-time threat detection, raising ethical questions about surveillance, privacy, and the balance between safety and freedom. Will these measures make Jewish spaces feel more secure, or will they further distance communities from the openness they prize? Yet it's not only institutions and governments that shape the future, it's all of us. For individuals, these times force a reckoning. How do we respond to fear? Do we retreat and isolate, or reach out and connect? Rabbi Shira Stutman reminds us that we must not be afraid to live openly and proudly as Jews, but we must also be vigilant and proactive in protecting our community. The psychological toll is real. Exhaustion has become a companion for many Jewish leaders, who must now balance pastoral care with emergency preparedness. It would be nice to focus on the issues people struggle with beyond these massive global conflicts we didn't sign up for, says Rabbi Potek, capturing the sense of loss many feel, the loss of ordinary days, of the right to simply be. If there is a danger, it lies in adjusting too easily to a permanently heightened state of alarm. Throughout history, Jews have adapted to adversity with remarkable resilience. But resilience must not cross over into resignation. There is a real risk that in normalizing fear, we silently accept a narrowing of the American promise for all minorities. So, What practical lessons emerge from this agony? For those inside Jewish communities, one lesson is to resist isolation. As Potek observes, Jews have a way of showing up in times of crisis, and that's a beautiful instinct. That instinct needs to be cultivated through communal events, shared learning, and mutual support. Technology, for all its dangers, can be repurposed for this. Online forums, virtual Shabbat dinners, and global solidarity campaigns are helping Jews stay connected, even as in-person gatherings carry new risks. For parents and educators, the rise in anti-Semitic incidents, like the 150% jump targeting Jewish day schools in early 2025, underscores the need for robust education. This education must go beyond teaching about the Holocaust or past persecutions. It must nurture empathy, critical thinking, and the ability to distinguish between legitimate policy debates and toxic hate. Interfaith and intercultural dialogues, modeled by the late Sarah Milgram, can counteract the echo chambers that fuel extremism. For broader society, there's an urgent need to recognize how anti-Semitism is often a canary in the coal mine. As Rabbi Potek warns, movements seeking to eliminate difference will target all of us. In other words, when Jewish communities are under attack, so too are the ideals of pluralism, democracy, and respect for difference upon which America is built. Standing up to anti-Semitism is not just about protecting Jews, it's a test of America itself. There are concrete steps everyone can take. Call out hate speech, whether it comes from friends, colleagues, or public figures. Support policies that make all religious and minority communities safer, not just your own. Engage with those you disagree with, and be wary of rhetoric that dehumanizes, exaggerates, or exploits tragedy for political gain. And perhaps most importantly, refuse to let fear be the dominant emotion that shapes your public life. To answer the lingering question from the outset, is this dangerous trend temporary, or is it the beginning of a long-term erosion of safety and pluralism in America? The truth is, the answer will be shaped by how all of us respond now. History teaches us that anti-Semitism mutates, finding new hosts and new justifications in each era. But history also teaches us that vigilance, solidarity, and principled openness can beat back the tides of hate. The fatal shooting in Washington is a wrenching reminder that progress is neither automatic nor permanent. Each generation must fight for its freedoms anew. Yet even as Jewish communities lock their doors, there is a parallel movement to unlock hearts. Rabbi Stutman's words ring out. We must not be afraid to live openly. And here's a secret fact that few realize. Even at the height of fear, Jewish cultural and religious life in America has not diminished. It has flourished in new forms. More young Jews are engaging with their heritage in creative ways, more interfaith couples are raising Jewish children, and more bridges are being built across communities. The instinct to show up for each other is, perhaps, the strongest defense of all. So as you reflect on these harrowing events, ask yourself, what kind of society do you want to build? Will we settle into suspicion and fortresses, or reach, however warily, toward openness and empathy? The task isn't just to make Jewish life safer, but to make American life more just, more inclusive, and more courageous. If this video spoke to you, please share it with someone who might need hope or perspective right now. Leave a comment with your thoughts. How do you see the future for American pluralism? Subscribe for more in-depth analysis on the most important stories shaping our world. And above all, remember,